intro.
And we are live, everyone. Welcome to the Social and Emotional Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew Jones, and here we are with Dave, Alima, and Dan in no specific order. And
I like the order.
Yeah. So here we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, what are we talking about today?
Ambrose, you get to take care of it.
Balls in my court. Okay, no problem. We're gonna take a look at tough love. Old timers like me are big on expressing that all the time. I think you've got to be able to deal with tough love, and we're gonna be asking, does it work? Is it applicable, especially to a newer generation? Is that what they want? Is that what they're going to respond to?
Yeah, it's the whole concept of what is the best approach to teach as a parent, as a teacher, as a coach. What do the students or the children want, or whoever the person is? What are they going to respond to? And trying to figure out. We took some data from some students today. Over the last couple of days to try to give some feedback about whether or not they're going to be receptive to a certain type of style, whether it's tough love, more of a coddling type of approach, or somewhere in the middle. And I think we're trying to figure out also if there's any kind of connection from those areas of the teaching style to a sense of confidence, of how we can instill a sense of confidence in what's going to be the better approach, because maybe both extremes don't help confidence, but it's somewhere maybe in the middle. So we're just going to try to digest that a little bit, try to figure out maybe and just discuss the pros and cons to both sides, and as it pertains to our students and our children and whoever.
I guess before we even start, I have to say, just talking from a mental health aspect, before we even go into it, like, it's also situational when it comes to mental health. Like, you don't know where they're coming from, what's going on in their lives, and how they're going to respond in any given moment to that tough love situation. So it may work one day and It may not the other. So I just want to throw that out there, that the mental health aspect of it and what we're seeing and what I'm seeing with students coming into my office with maybe little comments that a teacher may make now that they would have been able to handle previously, they're not able to handle it now. So just keeping that in mind, and I'll probably comment on that as we go through as well.
I think that's a great point. I don't think it's a one size fits all. We've asked some people. Well, let's find out what they said.
Yeah, so we put up actually on the website a link on the homepage, a link that asks the question. And if I go to my images, let me see what I got here. And I can actually share this on the screen, but is not set up to do so right this minute. So in time, we'll be able to go to the web to see exactly what we're seeing. We got it all here. We got it all. So how would you rate your level of confidence was the first question. And that was rated from 1 through 5, and 1 being low and 5 being high. And we had a whopping 45.5% chime in at right smack dab in the middle, which, to be honest, I kind of thought that's where it might go. None of these results really shocked me per se, but it is kind of funny to see the nuances. To put some of this in perspective, we had, at the time of me taking this screen grab, 110 responses, which was cool. Amazing.
It was most of our students. I mean, we really just rolled this out to the students in our classes, Andrew and myself today, so they were able to kind of respond, right there on the spot. It took them just a couple of seconds really to just fill it in. It all comes in anonymously, so we don't know who's who.
That's it.
There's no trace of anybody on there, so it's very comfortable. And they just were able to provide us some data very quickly, so we could just see, how that. And again, that about half in that 3 range, also is kind of the safest place to be, right?
Yeah.
You almost just say to yourself, I don't think I'm that confident. I don't think I'm not. So it does show a sense of a little bit of almost just comfort, I guess, with just saying you're just going to be right there at a 3. I don't know that it's
I feel like I operate at a 3. I'm like, it depends on the day. So I'm going to say 3 because, you know, tomorrow when I wake up, I may be feeling extremely confident. And especially when it comes to being in a classroom. If I'm in your class, maybe I'm not feeling so great because you're a little intimidating to me. But if I'm with Mr. Jones over here, maybe it's a little different. But again, I looking at this and I can see it kind of, my eyes are really bad, but there is responses that put it themselves at 1.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's 2 that put themselves at 1, and I'll tell you because some of them, you know, I've been very guilty in the past of filling out a survey and putting down what I wish I was instead of what I actually was. You know, so I bet you there's some of that going on. It's interesting to see the results, but then bravo to the ones that did choose a 1 or a 2, and they outed themselves to themselves, right? Because that's a tough thing to do. Oh yeah, I guess I am. Is not to make anyone feel bad, but you know, when I presented this to my students, I presented it in a way just to say, look, each week we're going to go through one of these. This is also going to be your opportunity to present possibly a question that we will dissect and look in much deeper. Maybe you're going through, maybe collectively a lot of you are going through some of the same things. Well, let's talk about it. You can sit on the sidelines. You can anonymously kind of chime in with a question and interact and maybe get some questions that you're too scared to ask anyone else, or you're just a little bit intimidated because you're not that self-confident. How about that?
Yeah. Well, what? So you say you'd be a 3?
I would put myself at a 3.
Jones, where would you be on that chart?
Now I am a 4.5.
Yeah,
I am, but
nice.
Overly so. And that's the self-critical part of me, which you will see in sometimes, you know, when I self-analyze, I'm like, oh, I'm not doing this right. Sorry, you know, all of that. So that's where the last little bit, but I'm not scared. I will go up in front of an audience and talk. I've never done it and sang. That would be my truest test of standing up. I enjoy to sing.
And go.
But
we're listening.
but actually doing it, that would be one day I want to do that to some degree. I've always said in my life, I want to achieve this and this to a professional level, and I just mean I could make a living from that if I wanted. And on that list, ready, is castle doors for basements, boots for science fiction movies, so shoes and boots, because my grandpa, one of them used to be a cobbler. Build a boat, check.
Nice.
Done that. You've done that, sure.
Yeah. So, and then before I become a teacher, I dated someone that was a teacher, and we were out at a restaurant, and she just reached around the cash register. The cash register. She grabbed some napkins and this and that, and she walked off. She took charge, and I felt like I was with my mum. I'm like, this is fantastic. I love this because I never had the guts to do that. I never had the self-confidence. There we go. I never had the self-confidence to step up, and this was like an actualized individual, and I wanted to be that. So when I knew I was going to be a teacher, I was freaking out because I was going to have to speak in front of people. So I was trying to get on Toastmasters, right? So I was trying to join Toastmasters to get the experience. I was pooping my pants. But within 20 minutes of talking to the kids, I'm like, kids, this is easy. You know, and then day by day, as you know, it just becomes, and then it becomes like almost like your show. And then like, what's your show going to be about?
Yeah. You guys aren't off the hook. You both still need to give your responses where you fall in those levels.
Well, it's interesting because I'm listening to you and putting together my own answer and trying to evaluate myself and do a quick reflection. It depends. I think sometimes that I'm a 5 and sometimes I'm a 1. You know, it depends on the situation and what do we mean by confidence? Confident about what? confident that I can express an idea? Sometimes I do. Sometimes I really do think that, wow, I really know what I'm talking about. And other times I think, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I've got nothing. I think it depends on the venue for me. It depends on the people that I'm interacting with. I'm feeling very confident right now because I'm with my people, right? But if it was Danny Ambrose on some other podcast for the first time, and I didn't know the people I was working with, I might slip down to maybe not a one, but maybe a two, and I might kind of retreat and say, I really don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not enthusiastic about it at all, or I don't feel like I want to move forward with this. I really do think it has to do with for me it's situational. It really is.
See, I think you're taking it the wrong way. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit.
That's
about
fine. Go ahead.
Where you're taking that. The idea, and I think Alima too, the idea of the different scenarios. I think it's when you talk about confidence, is just knowing yourself, knowing what you're good at, knowing what you're bad at, being able to advocate for yourself, stand up for yourself, and things like that. I think both of you are like that. You might not be confident in a specific skill, but you know enough that you're not great at that skill, and you can maneuver around it. You're not going to shy away from it. Correct. To say, you're not going to BS your way through. You're just going to be like, look, I don't have much to say about that. You're showing confidence in yourself to admit where your strengths and your weaknesses are. So I still think it's a part of the confidence pool. So if you go to a situation, another podcast is talking about plants, and you're like, I don't know anything about plants, you're not going to sit there and be like, oh my God, I'm super nervous. You're just going to be like, I don't know about plants. You're going to be honest. You're going to 100%, I know you enough that you're going to 100% say something that's true and honest to yourself. And that means you're confident. I think that the idea of confidence is knowing who you are, being who you are, and just kind of moving forward as an advocate for yourself and things like that. I think it's not a matter of certain scenarios, because I'm the same way. Like, I know there's certain areas that I'm not very strong in. I cannot cook to save my life, but I'll say that. I'll never admit that I'm not. I'll just say I can't cook, and I'll make something, and I'll be like, I'll eat it. Something like that. My kids will eat it maybe. It's macaroni and cheese, whatever, but it's a sense of knowing your limitations, but then not becoming a different person because of that, but still being you in that other situation.
Well, now you got me thinking about this part, and I do think you made a great point, but
there was a button there. I hear conflict.
I hear
conflict.
No, because
I need a sound effect. Ding, ding.
One of the points I think that it's a great point. You know yourself. You know what you're all about. You know your strengths and weaknesses, but can you expect that of a teenager? Do you know what your limits are as a teenager? I think it's just the opposite. When you're a teenager, you don't know what your limits are. You don't know. You really don't have a good inventory of like what your strengths and weaknesses are.
Well, but I'm talking about you. I'm saying you're definitely not a 5 or a 1. You're closer to a 5, and I think you're a 4 or 5. I mean, I'm saying.
And listening to you, I'm like, okay, maybe looking at it from that perspective, but when. In reading the question and just thinking about how the kids would even respond to it, confidence overall, like taking apart your like assessment of self, like that's how I looked at it. And I'm like, oh, I put myself in the middle at a 3. But when it comes to being able to accept, I just can't do some of these things. Oh yeah, I'm definitely up there in the 4.55 range. Yeah.
Well, but I think just because somebody comes across as confident, I don't think you necessarily know what's going on inside their head.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to tell you, there are times when I've been able to really put on the impression that I am very outgoing, confident, sociable, and people really know me. I mean, really know me. Think, wow, you've got a lot of people fooled. And sometimes I think that of myself. I think. Is this true confidence, or is this just the image I'm giving people?
Well, now we're getting into imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Well, that's another day, because I can go crazy.
Yeah, that is another
I can't play that game. You can see it on my face. I'll be like, I don't like this person at all. And everyone knows it who's conceived.
No, I if the first few.
So am I drifting away?
The few 3 or 4 years, I delved into that pretty deeply. Just got that teaching, and it is you like, who am I? You see all these other great individuals doing, but then reality hits and you realize that you too No. Look, I'm the goofball of the group, of course. I'm the one just look, I want to say welcome to the 10 viewers, and Hillbilly says bad times produce good people. Good people create good times. Good times produce bad people. So oversimplified, a little bit like my comment the other week. I had a very deep conversation with some of my friends about that, but it was this podcast. Yeah, look, I get it, and there is some truth in it. I was thinking about earlier about how self-image. I was talking to my wife about it because I was like, well, how can I approach all of this? And I said, how was your self-confidence, at your age? She said, when you were in high school. And she's like, you know what? I had no self-confidence. I felt overweight. This wasn't right. That wasn't right. I had a bad self-image. And that's why I kind of wonder what the true reality of the self-confidence of many of the reports that we got today. That's amazing. If these students are going through, like, if we look at, we don't know who they are, and who said what, but if we have 24 that had either 1 or 2s, that might statistically kind of, for me and the way that my brain works, like if I look at a bunch of students, yeah, maybe that section over there have self-image issues because they just haven't grown through, right? They haven't gone through, they haven't developed, they think certain things about themselves. I know because I was one, and a lot of our hurt and a lot of our pain when we react, it's still from that kind of undeveloped parts of ourselves. And I think, like Hillbilly's saying, that bad times help us grow. If we can kind of get the tools to learn and grow while going through those bad times, we come out the other side with the tools and a better understanding of ourselves. And in fact, we need adversity. Yes, kids, I teach you all this coming out of that. So, but it's interesting to see that adversity really does. I was speaking to my kid the other day, just saying, look, yeah, I know a lot of you wish you could win $1 million. But I'm kind of glad I've fought up through the ranks and had my trials. I wouldn't undo any of my life.
Well, doesn't then that all fit in with the tough love? That it's a calling for tough love? Because if you're saying that adversity is what builds character, then the prescription would be tough love, right?
Right.
And even though the answers were, I prefer not to have tough love, the reality is sometimes it's some of that helps us grow. It's that adversity. It's the plant pushing up through gravity in the soil. And
well, where's the love part of the tough love? I think that you have to find
you're doing it to help them. Despite how painful it might be.
Yes.
You want them to push through it and come out the other side.
But isn't it then important to then convey that?
Yeah.
You're not just a bastard.
Of course.
Yeah.
You have to.
You've got an objective.
The key is you have to let them know you're doing this for their best interests. That's where the love part is. I'm genuinely interested in your growth in whatever it is, whether you're being a trainer in the gym, a teacher in the classroom, a coach on the field. You're genuinely invested in them growing as a player, a student, an individual, whatever it is.
But that's the communication aspect, right? So when we're talking about just communication, relationships, so again, you have to have a good relationship in your classroom, in your office, right? In every situation with those students. You can't just come off with the tough love. If they don't know you, you don't know the situation. I feel like that is sometimes like people go at it aggressively and then they wonder why students then aren't responsive.
Yeah.
And that creates an issue because, again, have you built the rapport? Have you've kind of felt out the room and realized, okay, this kid, I can see that there's something going on this particular day. Maybe I don't go there with them. Like, I think you have to really assess and like take a step back. So going back to what you said, like, where is the, like, how do you differentiate between the two, I guess?
Well, because then you just come across as tough.
Or a bad word that we can't say on the podcast.
I did use another word in class today, but it was school appropriate. But you know, yeah, that those teachers and I have done it coming up through the years, you know, ego, not knowing fully how to become a teacher, alternate route, or although it got me into the position, it doesn't give you a lot of finesse. And I'm not sure there's many methods from some of the teachers over time that I've seen come and go through the school. You know, it's tough sometimes watching people do what they're doing for their subject matter, whatever it is that they're teaching. Sometimes it's just so hard to say the words, because you know things go on, you know, in all schools, and to kind of bring a light on it, you know, it's just so it's painful. And it's kind of, there's a subject and I'm trying to talk about this and I'm like talking all around here, tap dancing. But you know, it's some of the students know that certain teachers are tough, and I think there's a lot of leeway. I have my kids laughing. I want laughter. I will go from being strict to having them laughing like within 5 minutes. But I tell them, look, a little bit like a dad, you know, and would it be that fathers and mothers make, or no, that's silly, because anyway, whatever.
What happened? How about I have a question, a serious question, and this is like before we dive into what it looks like in the school, like thinking from your own childhoods and you growing up in your experiences, what did you respond to, like from your families or from situations? Like, I'd like to just hear like your different experiences, because for me, like with coaching, I had a coach, Mr. Ulrich, shout out to him, right? State championships and everything, but he like used to throw chairs. He like used to scream in our faces, and I'd be like, yes, I will make the next layup. Like it wasn't even a question. And I was responsive in that way, but I also had him in math class. And when he would get mad or upset with me in math class, I shut down and I couldn't function. I was like, nope, not doing it. Right? So again, like same person, different situations. And for me, I was like, yeah, I can't take that. And I think that after a couple of times of me saying that I'm just not going to do it, he realized in class he had to address me differently. And then it wasn't.
Was it just you in that class he was dealing with that way, or was it everybody?
You know what? Everyone.
Okay.
Everyone. But everyone else wouldn't say anything, and I would just be like, no, I'm not doing it. So it was a problem. But
Hillbilly says yes, parents are better teachers, they just don't know the material. So maybe, I think we all got a subject within us, right? I think we all got a specialty. That's what I tell all my students anyway. So I think we all got a talent that we someday to kind of tap into. So
see, now you got me thinking about.
I see a T-shirt coming.
No, you got me thinking about are parents the best teachers? Are parents? I mean, I think I'm a good dad. I really do. I mean, you know, when it comes down to, you know, confidence as a dad, I think I'm a 5. I really do. Because I got a strong interest there. But now you got me thinking: is your parent your best teacher? Because I sometimes have seen people respond better to tough love, to candor from strangers than from people that you have a strong relationship with. I know I won't go too deep with this, but I know with
I'm going deep into that.
No, I mean, you said, you know, how did I grow up? You know, it was a lot of tough love, and there was definitely pushback because I was the youngest of 6, and like my dad would be over 100 at this point. So I'm from a different generation, a generation that was very big, at least what I observed on tough love and being, you know, kind of just straightforward with you and hitting hard, etc. Is that the best way to do it? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it's easier to be a little bit more objective. Taking, I've seen it. I've seen my children do it right before my very eyes. Not listen to a word I'm saying, but for good reason. You know, I've not been looking back. I've not been the greatest parent. So, not saying that I've been a bad parent, but I wish I did things differently at the time. If I could go back and undo some things, absolutely in a heartbeat. You know, I've mentioned before that I have a daughter that I'm still trying to kind of mend things with. She's at an age that needs you know, some finessing and growing, and you know, I'm someone that's changed so much in the last year, but then the year before that and the year before that. So for me, it's just you know, it's funny. Kids look at a certain age and they think, wow, those individuals are so old, but I'll outwork, you know, like, come on, let's, you know, I won't outrun or probably outwalk, but outwork, and just, you know, I wish I could do things differently, but yeah, I've seen students and my own children just listen to a stranger. Oh yeah, what you got to say? You know, like right. Instantly kind of acknowledge the other individual. So yeah, you know, it's we got to be careful as well. I think we're more mindful when we teach maybe other children, especially at having our own children, because we got that parental sensibility about us. I wonder, is there more awkwardness with teachers that don't have children? Again, another topic for another day. But you know, it's all part of bringing some tough love and knowing how far you can push it.
No, I'm going to interject.
No,
here.
go ahead.
I'm going to take this.
No,
because
I'll write down what I was going to say.
This concept of parents make better teachers, I think, is complete garbage.
Okay.
I'm just telling you. I'm not trying to be antagonistic.
You're either the Simon Cowell or the Howard Stern of the group.
I'm just saying, I did not have kids for most of my teaching career, and I think I was damn good.
That's how I feel too.
And exactly, I was going to say the same thing for you. I was, as coaches, same thing.
Yeah.
I loved my kids when I coached them. I loved them, and I still stay in touch with some of them that I had when they were in middle school, and they know they can come to me for anything. And I even got to the point where sometimes I would say, like, their families were in gangs, and I'm like, I wish I could just take you to live at my house. Yeah. Like, because you just have it so bad, and I just don't want you to be caught up in it. Anything for these kids, whatever it was, my food, my money,
I've wanted to, not, you know, that's a strange grouping of words to put together. Or I'd want to adopt them. You know? Yeah,
but but you don't need to have.
I come home and tell my wife
for that.
You know, I come home and tell my wife, and I'm like, oh, you know, it's just you see things and situations, and you just want to pluck them out and not have them go through it.
Right, but I don't think you need to have children. Some of the best teachers I've ever worked with were teachers who did not have children.
Because those kids are your kids.
And exactly, and those teachers put 100% of their effort into their students. All day, all night, they would work, and they weren't guilty about sacrificing their children because they were working for their children. So it wasn't a battle of I'm choosing one or the other. Same thing with me. When I got to the point where I had my first kid, and I said, can I be a coach, an honors teacher, and a good dad at the same time? And I said, I have to pick something. Something's got to lose here. Something's got to give. And I decided to drop coaching at that point. Even though I love coaching, I just said I have to give it up because I can't sacrifice the potential of not being a good dad. Yeah. So, and then same thing, I want to put more in. I can't split it three ways and be as good as an English teacher I want to be, as good a coach as I want to be, and as good a dad as I want to be. I can't do it. Something's got to give. So that concept, even my sister doesn't have any children, but she's a dance teacher and she owns a dance studio. Those are all her kids. She loves those kids so much, and they respond to her, and she cries with them, and it's beautiful to see. And there's nothing. If she has children, that won't change. If she doesn't have children, that won't change. That's just the way she is. And they all respond to it. The parents all know it. The kids all know it. Anyone who sees it knows it. So I don't think a blanket statement about that, because I know a lot of teachers who are terrible and they have children. Right?
Wow, I was struggling with this. I was
No,
doing
I'm
it.
not.
I
I don't
doing
care.
it. I was doing a tap.
They know who they are.
Dave's like,
You know who you are.
Call yourselves out. Put comment in. I don't care. You know, they're probably not watching anyway. They're probably
Stop.
doing something. They're not doing work. They're not watching their kids.
we
so I
need
don't
a
know.
beat button. We need a beat button.
But the point is, like I said, I don't think it necessarily one translates to the other. I just think if you're a certain type of person,
Yeah.
if you're a good person,
So it
and you're
depends on
genuine,
the type of person.
yeah, it depends on what you got in the job for. If
Yeah.
you're a good, hearted person who's genuinely in it for the betterment of kids,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna do whatever it takes for that, and it's gonna be trial and error, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
I taught in Patterson the first few years of my teaching career. First year I was in a building that was 4 stories high, and the security was on the bottom floor.
Yeah.
And it would take like 10 minutes for me to get there, and there's just chaos happening. Kids like thrown through walls. And I would sit there. I had a drawer full of candy, and I was just like, I gotta try to figure this out. Like, I really want to be effective,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, if you don't break something, you're gonna get a piece of candy.
Great. You've now told your current students how to get free candy
No, and that was when I was 22.
from Mr. Ritchie.
That was 22 kids. But it was just, if you genuinely want to be better, you're gonna figure it out, and that's what it comes down to. You're gonna figure out what's gonna get through the kids, and getting back to the tough love. For myself, I would not say I had a tough love upbringing.
Okay.
I would say probably more on the coddling side than anything, but it was kind of more in the middle, I guess. But there's 4 of us, so it was, I guess, difficult. But for me, I kind of wish I had more tough love.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I from my coaches, from my teachers, I was able to kind of manipulate situations to where they would leave me alone, and they would just kind of be like, I know how I could just kind of like get him to like appease him in a way,
Yeah.
like just
Mm-hmm.
good enough to just keep him whatever. But I was a very passionate person, but they never really pushed me to be better.
Mm.
They never really challenged me on things, so I kind of just was able to be kind of the manipulator, I guess, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I always felt as a teacher I wanted to be more of that, because I felt I wanted more of that. So as a player in basketball, I never had a coach that was like, you got to really work your butt off and do this and that. So that's the coach I was. I was like, no, you're going to be better than that, and we're going to win games and this and that. And they would respond, and the parents responded, and the kids. We still had fun at nicknames for them, whatever. But you find the balance. But I think I lean more towards the idea of showing tough love, because the love is genuine. It's there.
Yeah, I start every year out, and I tell my students, I say, look, some of you might not like me in a couple of weeks from now.
Mm-hmm.
Wait till I put in the grades. That is part of the tough love. I used to verbally kind of, look, you need to. I am about as much as we can get. I sometimes forget that this is high school, but we teach to such a high standard that when you leave this school, you will not need to go to college. You won't. Not for graphic design. You could sidestep into a career and earn decent money with the qualifications, the certifications that you need. Actually, you don't even need them. So you're actually leaving high school with qualifications that a lot of the designers don't even have. So straight out of the gate, you can go into an employer, and that employer will know that you can handle pretty much any of the basic foundational stuff that they're going to throw at you. So, I started off and I say, look, the couple of weeks are going to be hard. I said, but I'll back off in time. But even still, the tough love is they'll draw a line, and the line will be like a little bit thicker than a hair, and they're meant to be touching. But if they're slightly overcrossed or there's a little gap, my vision is such now that I'll see the whole thing and I'll zoom right in, and it'll look beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll zoom in and I will show all the flaws in it to kind of, this is. And I almost took a little bit of pride in it. One year I was at Coles down the road, and I met Maurice. That's what his only name I can remember. And great kid, but he was always sleeping in class, so it was always a joke, But I saw him in class. I saw him in Coles, and he's like, Mr. Jones. He's with his girlfriend. Mr. Jones, the other students and I, we were talking about you, and we were talking about, like the level of perfection that you demanded in class.
That's Dan's phone going
Yes.
off, just so everyone knows.
I'm a primitive. I can't even turn this off.
It's just
Well,
it's going
going.
off like crazy.
Now I can use that line that I use in class. Of course, you're on your phone. No one never looks down to their crotch and smiles.
Yeah, and this is
There we go. I think
and this
that's
is
it.
our success coordinator.
Yeah.
Throw it out the window. I'm gonna step on this thing.
Let all the kids see that. Yeah, give me your phone.
But yeah, some of that tough love, it comes across in different forms as well. So to be able to call them on stuff and demand better in a polite but precise way, it's just letting them know that I don't want to settle for less, and you shouldn't be settling for less. And in fact, if you do what I'm telling you, you're going to beat out some of the people that are also creating the same type of work. So, and then a couple minutes later, we're going to be laughing because I'm making a big fool of myself. I got a massive ID that I made myself that's like twice the size, and I get students
like the size of the Flavor Flav clock.
About the same size. Yeah, about the same size. And I have students come in from other classes, and there is like, what's new today? So I walk up to them and I say, are you in our gang? And they're like, what gang is that? I said, the Big ID gang. And they're like, oh, Mr. Jones. So it's just, I'll tell you, and we brought this up a little bit earlier, and not to go off topic, but this year's class, this year's students, there's something going on. Yes, they might be a little bit more freaked out in a sense, but in my class, the way they interact with me, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing exuberance. I'm seeing speaking, interactivity. They're enjoying, and maybe it's because they're just back in class. They're happy to be back.
To learn.
Yeah.
Most of the kids, that's what I've been hearing from them, is that they're just happy to be back and to learn because they feel as though they missed so much.
Yeah. Oh, it's like a brand new toy. I just love playing. Like the three classes that I got, they're all great. And even even the you get students of all varying abilities, and everyone's kind of knocking it out of the park. And it's already exciting. Every year typically I'm filled with a little bit of dread for a different reason, and it's usually because I don't know how to handle things or climb on top of all the paperwork or the emails. But just that one little thing to no, I had a little conversation there, and we're down to two viewers. All right, I get it.
You know what I wanted to say? So just going back to like the tough love situation in the classroom, I was definitely a tough love person. And now that I find being a school counselor, I realize that, again, I have to know what the situation is after they're in the door, and then I have to figure out how to address it. But within the first couple of weeks of school, again, an English teacher called me. They're like, "Put up, this kid, look at this project. I just emailed it to you." I open it up and I was like, "What is that?" I call the kid down, walks in, I put it on my desk, and I just do this. And he's like, "It's bad." I'm like, "It's really bad." Like, it's not just bad, it's really bad. And I like dug into him a little bit. He laughed it off. He's like, "All right, I know." But again, like, that's one situation, and it depends on who's coming in the door and what it is, So I do see the tough love approach and how it could be extremely successful, but I do think that sometimes they just need a hug.
Yeah,
well, we gotta keep in mind, like, what I think that the general public now is kind of in this spot of people are too soft now. Like, that's like the general consensus of like in sports. You hear it all the time in sports. Like, these players today are so soft. They don't play all the games, and they're always complaining about this and that. They make so much money, but they're not tough. They get a little injury. They don't play through it. So you see it a lot. It kind of trickles into, obviously, the society, and it can be anything from academics to the workplace or whatever. People aren't working. They're getting all this money, whatever. There's this idea of people not really being dedicated and putting out their best efforts, things like that. And I do feel like at my core, I'm more of a tough love person, but I've been more open-minded to kind of relaxing that to some degree based on where the students are and what my expectations for them are. So it's coming the school year. I want you to be here. And then I'm like, oh man, you're not even close to there. So I got to start going down a little bit. But I still, at my core, want to be like, no, keep it there. Like, I can't. and it was same thing even happened last year. We were talking about S.E.L, give the kids a break kind of thing, and I'm like, am I doing a disservice to the students by giving them a day of a break to do nothing kind of thing, or just to talk about something? And should we be, for those kids in the class who really want to do well in the SATs or to really want to get to the AP course, do I owe it to them to hold them to a higher standard? And I've been trying to find the balance in between, but I think you're right. It is about that, but as Dan mentioned before, it's not a one size fit all type of approach, but I always give the kids, like, everybody gets one, like you get one kind of flub, oh, I forgot this. All right, no problem. And I'll always be very understanding in the beginning. But once something becomes a habit, then it's going to become a problem.
Yeah.
So it's always like, oh, I forgot to submit that. I had it done. No problem. I won't even second guess. I'll just be like, yep, you got it. Send it to me tonight. Oh, thanks. If it happens again, then I'm going to start digging in a little bit and saying, like, what's going on. Just a quick anecdotal thing because it applies. It's with my daughter. So my daughter this week, she's in first grade. She's in a school it goes up to fifth grade, and they're sharing bathrooms and things like that in the hallways. So she goes in there, and there's a couple older kids in there, and they make fun of her for being small. Like, oh, look at the little kindergarten kid. And then she goes to use the restroom. She's in the stall, and the kids are like in there, and they're kind of talking. And she goes to leave, and they're like, no, you got to stop. You got to stay here. Then they try to get her to like crawl underneath the stall, and then they, kind of bullying her a bit and saying stuff. We can't let you leave now. You got to stay here for a little bit. And she tells me, she's like, I just wanted to go back to math. I didn't want to miss math. They were learning something new in math. I want to go back to math. I said, were you scared? She's like, no. She's like, I was just kind of sad because they were kind of making fun of me. I'm like, okay. And then I don't know how long she was in there, and she doesn't really know how, like, she couldn't tell the time kind of thing. But then when she gets back to class, this is where the S.E.L has got to kick in. Like, people need to be aware of this.
Yeah. It's
a newer teacher. I think she's only in her second year. And she comes back to class. The first thing the teacher says is, Eva, you can't take so long in the bathroom. Like, that's her first response.
Yeah. And
I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, is she someone to sit? Is this the 20th time she's been in there hanging out? Like, she's not someone to do that. So you're sitting here in the first month of school. You got a kid, in the building. There are longer days, whatever, and you're gonna assume she's messing around.
Yeah.
And she didn't say anything. She just sat down. She didn't say anything to the teacher about what was going on.
Yeah.
But I'm so proud of her. She said something to me. As soon as I picked her up, she's like, Dad, I got to tell you something that happened in school today. And I got the whole thing out of her. And she was just like, I just wanted to go to class. I don't know how long I was in there for. But, I mean,
that speaks volumes to your parenting as well, because oftentimes a kid isn't going to say anything.
Well, I mean, she's a first. I appreciate that. I don't know how much it's like. She's young. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, I'm going in tomorrow. And I'm talking.
That's what I was gonna say.
I'm talking to the principal and the teacher just because it's not okay, and you can't just. I don't want her to say I'm not going to the bathroom in school or I can't whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's something that it happened once, but like, can't you give the kid just be like, hey, that's something
Was
that an
everything
S.E.L.
okay?
An S.E.L. person, anybody. You don't have to be a genius for this. Just be like, are you okay? Is that just to the side quietly? Hey, is everything all right? You all right in there? Like, did anything happen? Do you need to go to the nurse? Just the assumption, like, what are we doing? Like, that's something that, as far as S.E.L. goes, that's where we need S.E.L. That's where we need to have a sense of understanding and stop everything for a minute. And is it worth it to make that comment to this kid?
Yeah.
And if you're wrong, it's like I told you the story about, like, making the assumption about my kid when she wouldn't go to bed. You feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
And she should feel like an idiot. She should be completely embarrassed. And you have to correct that immediately. That cannot happen again to any kid.
I agree.
Yeah, that's and the sad part about it is there's so many teachers that won't see what's plainly there to see. It's what's an age appropriate response for that? You think of first graders that just out to goof around or get up to mischief. So. Yeah, and I felt a little bit guilty as you were telling the story, but as I was kind of going over my own recollections, those individuals are often goofing around, spending too long out, and then when it eventually happens, when it happens on the third or the fourth time, I'm like, dude, where have you? Come on,
right?
that you know when it's appropriate.
Right,
But
that's the point. Having the understanding of when, and I think that's where a lot of the students, because even if you look at the chart there, it says 50%. What is the 50% there? It says what of the students who responded today.
I need a balance between tough love and coddling.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of where we should be as a society in a way, like as parents, as teachers. I think as most students, and again, there's some range in the other areas, but I think it is time appropriate, student appropriate, individually appropriate for what they're doing, what they might be going through.
Yeah, some of these students are very very upfront, very self-aware, very good to see. I think some, myself included, would have said, "Yeah, I don't need the tough love," but
is it someone who's never had it before and they
Yeah.
don't know, they don't even know what that means? Like sometimes when people think tough love, they do just think you're going to be a bad word. Like you're going to treat me bad
Yeah,
and
yeah,
not with the good
yeah.
intentions that
Right,
we've
yeah.
been saying that goes behind it. So,
that's it.
I mean,
But when I and I use this a lot with my students, and every year I always ask the previous year students, how should I approach the kids this year? I always ask them. So, and I tell the kids, and I've used this before, you're not going to like me while you have me necessarily, but you're going to love me when you're done with my class, because it is a tough love type of thing. You're going to be better for it. And a lot of students at the end of the year will, even the quiet ones, will just say like, I really appreciate it. I learned a lot. I might not have said a lot, but I learned a lot. And it makes me feel good that I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right. And the toughness, and it is genuinely from a place of, I know what you haven't gotten before, especially coming off the pandemic. And if the buck has to stop somewhere, it'll stop with me. I'm going to try to get you as far as I can ahead to accomplish what you need to before college, knowing that you're going to be seniors next year, knowing that you're going to have senioritis at some point, knowing you're going to whatever. And I genuinely am interested in that. And that, knowing that I'm going to sacrifice a lot of fans necessarily during the year, but they know I'm the first day they always go, I was so petrified of you. But I always ask the kids and I'm like, how should I talk to them at the first time I meet them? They're like, you got to do the same thing you did to us. You got to do the same. So it's almost like a ritual now that when I meet them, they're like, because they'll hear it, but they won't know it until they see it.
I kind of do that, but to a lesser degree, and just. But even on day one, I'm trying to get a laugh. But it has to be the things that we need to do are done in a very kind of not a ritualized manner, but just in a very regulated and formatted way, so that this needs to be handed in when that not to spend 20 minutes out going to the bathroom, just all of these that that if you're facing your computer, actually if you're facing away from your computer and it's 5 minutes later, I'm looking at my watch, you're going to be hearing your name. And I call a lot of individuals out as a class, just to say, look guys, some of you are you're not facing your computers, you can do your talking, but this work needs to get done. I'll relate it to being on the work site. I tell them that my class is just like being in a place of employment, that I would rather you make the mistake here in class and I'll tell you about it, like that would have got you fired, rather than me not bringing it up or not being as strict, and then you go on a place of employment and then you're out the door. But I think it took me many years and I'm still working on it. Sometimes I have to overcorrect because I feel, maybe that was because sometimes when you're speaking to a majority of the class that need to hear it, yet there's 2 or 3 sensitive individuals that now it's overload for them. It's doing that precision type of, reaching those ones that need to reach it. So, maybe I will throw in, look, I do notice that some of you, and I'll make eye contact with those that are, are a little bit, are doing a wonderful job, and I think sometimes that's just enough. I was saying something today and it just kicked in. I'm like, ooh. And I was saying to my sophomore class that, look, when you're not doing your best job, or maybe you're goofing around too much, and I looked at an individual, or you're goofing around too much, I'm like, oh, this student is totally good, and I had to back it up and tell him, I said, the brilliant work you're doing right here, I had to. pep them up a little bit. But you know, just those subconscious things that we do, and even now as an adult, if I'm sitting in the assembly and, for example, even though I'm confident, I'm so pessimistic sometimes with what I think is actually going on. So the principal would be saying someone, or someone of stature will be saying something, and they'll make eye contact when they're saying something derogatory, and I'm like, what did I do? You know, inside. So, but anyway, so
well, I have a question for you all, and I've been listening to you, obviously, and I think it's tangent to what we're talking about. I shouldn't say invariably. I almost invariably would ask this question to every class: is it better to learn the hard way or the easy way? And 100% of the students say the hard way. Is it better to learn the hard way or the easy way?
I think the hard way. Yeah.
So right now you're saying yes to the new math.
The hard way because.
I just feel like.
And then I'll tell you what the students say.
Yeah.
But we got to get Alima's answer.
Oh, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead. Hit it.
Hard
You're
way
gonna
or
say
easy
the hard
way?
way.
Wait, can I tell a little quick thing?
Do it.
Well, of course.
It's a traumatizing memory, but a good memory at the same time. I don't know how that's possible. My dad, when he was teaching me how to ride a bike, this is forever embedded in my brain. I fell off the bike. I'm crying, screaming.
Right.
He picked up the bike and walked home, and he left me.
Wow, that's it.
Down on the street crying.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, I guess I got to get up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for that, the hard way. I learned how to ride the bike, right?
Hard
Hard way.
2 for the hard way. How'd it go?
Give me an example.
Somebody rips you because you stepped out of line, all right? And could have done it in a more dramatic way, but you think, well, okay, I'll now remember this because it was so dramatic.
Yeah, I've had both, and what happens with me over time is I would prefer for their sake for it to be the easy way, and for my sake,
Right.
so I keep my job,
Right.
because that will sit with me a lot of the time, and I will not keep quiet, and I'll pick my words and I'll pick my time, and it will be something that they just one day accidentally, you know, did something, and I'm like, let me tell you something. You know, and I remember one boss of mine, he ripped me one day, and I said, and I reached that point, and I said, you know what? And he's like, oh, don't say those words. Don't say the, because we all know what's coming next, you know?
Yeah.
So because maybe I wasn't so, I'm certainly not that, again, not that individual that I used to be, but back then, like 20 plus years ago, if anyone taught me in that way, invariably I would feel put down, and it would trigger something, and I would have to stand up for myself again at some point when it was appropriate. But I would stand up for myself and let you know, whoever it was, that you don't talk to me that way.
Because it got personal.
It got personal. It triggered something deep. So yeah, it was you know, sometimes being the eldest is I don't want to get into too many of these areas. I don't know if mom and dad's listening. Look, I had an average upbringing, in the sense that I was coddled a lot. I was given so much love, but also the tough love sometimes was tough love. So and isn't that the source of conflict anyway as we grow up? Is like we don't necessarily agree, like, you know, fathers and sons or mothers and daughters. There's a stereotypical, you know, but everyone goes through it. So I think we all got a story like that. But for myself, it's kind of lingered over the years. And I can't say, I think what it's evolved into today is I'm very easily able to talk with my peers and my bosses. So I don't necessarily see my bosses as my boss per se. I will talk to them on a peer level. And I think it all stems from not wanting to be taught any hard lessons.
See, I always felt, and David, I'm sure he's going to have great feedback on this. And
I already see the pen going.
I'm enthusiastic right now because maybe you'll open up something that I don't realize. I think there's a danger in associating learning with pain. This idea that in order to learn something, I have to experience pain, and I think that for some people, they don't want that. If learning geometry is somehow associated with pain, no more geometry for me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just the danger of learning certain things the hard way. So what's the approach? I'm sure you'll drill down on this, and I'm looking forward to it. Like, it's not just hard, or it's not just tough. What's the secret ingredient that you can be tough
I feel like
without?
You said it before. Like, it's challenging and genuinely being dedicated to them growing as a person. Like, that's what he keeps going back to.
Yeah,
right?
It has to be genuine. But I think the way I took the idea of the hard way versus the easy way,
Mm-hmm.
I looked at that like when someone says you want to do this easy way or hard way. It's more like I've done a lot of stupid things and gotten into trouble in my life and made a lot of mistakes, academically, personally, whatever. And in that way, I've learned a lot. Mm-hmm. And it has been through my own stupidity and my own, errant ways that I've learned. It's not like, in that way, I look at it like it's been rough. Mm-hmm. Like I've done a lot of things where I'm just like, man, I got my question back. It's been tough.
Has it been unnecessarily rough? Is it possible to learn without?
No, I don't think I would be who I am and the way I am without having gone through and hit those low points. So I think the idea of, and it's all from my own doing, like getting in my own way, having issues that were unresolved, and whether it was, anxiety or whatever, just like not having a grasp of certain things, and then just being like, oh, I'll figure it all out, and then doing stupid things and seeing the consequences of those stupid things, that I was able to be like, now I have to figure it out. And the same thing, even like with having kids, it's like I wouldn't take care of myself a lot until I saw that my bad, the things that were negative about me were starting to influence my kids. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, that's not. I can't have that happen. So,
but is it possible to observe that in other people? And then
I don't think it's going to be as strong. It's again, you're never going to learn as much from another person's experiences as much as you're going to learn from your own. I always will say that, because you're going to make those mistakes. You watch a movie, you go, oh, look at that person had a terrible upbringing, blah, blah. Oh, don't drink because look what happened to this person drinking. It's like,
you have
it's not going to be me. Like there's that invincibility that we have, that we just feel like, I'll be the exception. I can get away with drinking and driving. Whatever. It's like you just feel like it's not going to be you, and you feel like what could happen, but you feel like it won't happen.
But think about how much more efficient it is to be able just to
learn from others' mistakes.
Learn from other people's mistakes.
No, you're 100% right. That's the thing.
That would be great.
That's a quote where it's like you don't.
I want to learn from somebody else's mistakes.
Yeah,
I
think I don't know if it was Tom or who was that said that, but
there is a way.
Yeah, well. Listen to us.
See, as well. Or you can download the website, or actually visit the website in the app. But
he's cutting us
look,
off here.
no, not at all. Not at all.
Look,
did my phone go off again?
It's about the time.
One of the things, the way I've learned hard lessons in the past is when you tell someone, don't do this, do that, or you're not. But when you take someone on a journey that is traveling with you through a story and you're reliving with them, that's almost the same as doing it. So my dad would tell me, one of the first stories he ever told me, and it stuck with me for life, was when he went to a pub and he had no money, and he was with his future father-in-law, and they were all sat around, and there was like 6 or 7 guys at a table, and started off the person next to him brought around, and they all had a drink, and the person next to him had a round, and then sure enough it was his turn, and he knew that this round of drinks was gonna set him out for like weeks, because that's all the money he had. That filled me with such, I don't know, fear, lack of control, of there not being enough money in the world, and all of these weird things that from that one story and me feeling all the feelings that I felt, I kind of took on the lesson that he was trying to subconsciously, I think, convey.
Yeah.
And he taught me some powerful lessons that day, and I didn't have to experience it for myself. It was living through vicariously everything that he was telling me. And I think through stories, just like the American Indians, telling these stories in a way that their young would buy into and feel all the emotions, they would learn and convey through stories.
Yeah, I think it's part of what I'm getting at. Like, we all have children, right? And do we want our children to learn the lessons that we learned about riding a bike or going out or whatever? Do we want them to learn the hard way? Is there a way that we can avoid that for the ones we love?
I feel like even if you try, it doesn't always work out the way that you intend. Like,
wow.
They have to make their own mistakes, I think that's part of it.
And you want them to make mistakes so that they can learn from them. But I understand what you're saying. You don't want them to have the worst of the things that we've experienced, but you want them to have those experiences to grow from.
I think you guys are going to agree with this. I could have made things so much easier on myself, growing up, and I had it pretty easy. But I'm just saying, I could have easily made it so much easier, my better person, because I made a lot of mistakes. I don't know. Does that make me a great man?
Well, I think we go back to Hillbilly's, one of Hillbilly's earlier
is he still with us?
remarks. He is.
All right, beautiful.
He's going to be a regular. I like Hillbilly.
Thanks for hanging in there.
We don't always agree.
Yeah,
but
that's all right. He said, and actually I wanted to comment that as someone in the construction industry, I would love to see the tape measure taught. Fractions and sixteenths in the simple tape measure layout is a lost art.
Yeah.
Actually, I teach graphic design, digital media, and what have you, and that is something that I found lacking. But I also make a lot of stuff with wood, so I think a lot of the students are going to take these skills into other areas in their life. So because of you, Hillbilly, you've reminded me to take in a tape measure, and sometime over the next few weeks, we're going to jump all over those 16ths and 32nds and 8ths. And Mr. Jones, what is this? How do I use this? They're just going to be doing...
Should we just get a metric one?
Yeah, digital one. 52 and point whatever it is, apparently. But listen, it's 9:01. It's an hour's flown by in a heartbeat. I actually like that. It was a bit more spirited.
Yeah.
That you feel. It was kind of almost jumping up a bit ugly. We want to get a couple of arm wrestling.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Gotta apologize for the phone.
Good thing these are waters and not something heavy.
Are we still on right now?
We are still on. But
I guess in the end, the most important thing is that people know that you have to be cautious, be understanding, to be in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Right. And to make sure that when you're giving out that tough love, you're also showing your love for them in what you're doing and what you're trying to get them to understand.
Yeah. Let me add on to what you guys said earlier. All you guys said earlier. I think that you can't just come out of the gate tough love based on nothing. You have to have that relationship, that understanding, that trust, where your students, your people realize that ultimately your objective and their objective are the same.
Yeah.
And part of that is just being there, right? Like as a teacher or at any position, you have to be present. Like tomorrow, even though I'm going in to talk to this, this principal and teacher, even if I get docked a half day, I'm coming in to try to get to my second period class.
Yeah.
Like I don't like to not be there. Like I'm doing I don't care if I'm not supposed to be there till 11:30. I'll be there at 9 o'clock if I can, you know what I mean? To just deal with my class. And they respond to the idea as a coach, as a parent, like, we know you're invested. We could see it. Your body language, your actions show. It's not just a bunch of words that you're out there trying to be tough. You're not. It's your genuine actions that show me that you are. And I think that's a big part of why it's great to be in person.
Yeah. Because
they can read that. Even just with their eyes, they know when you look at them and you say, I really want you to be better than you are right now, and I'm going to be tough on you, and they can see that you mean it. Instead of just listening over a thing and they got chaos happening in the background. It really is important that they actually sell you on that.
So we literally got seconds left because I think at 9:05, an hour and 5 minutes, this
Wrap
will
it up.
cut
Go ahead,
out.
hit it.
So what I'm going to say is, look,
Okay.
if you've enjoyed any part of this, you are in control of what we talk about each week. If there's enough of you that submit the topics, go to the Mello site, MLLO.app. On there, you will see the new latest questions. Drop a line, and thanks so much, Hillbilly. Drop us a line. Let us know what you want us to talk about, and if enough of you ask the right question, we'll talk about it. All right. So thank you so much. Thanks for
Participate
watching.
in the questions too.
Yeah, that's
There'll
it.
be interactive questions on
Be
there.
part of the show.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Next week.